and welcome to A Book in 5 Minutes. My name is Lindsay Milner and I'm a training and development consultant working mainly with non-profit organisations to help them to create awesome workplaces. And while I've been doing that work, I have read many books. I've read books on business development, personal development, books on thinking, books on effective management. And I thought it might be useful to share some of the insights that I've gained from those books with you. This week's book is The 4-Hour Work Week by Tim Ferris. I tried to review this book last week, but I failed to get through enough of the book to really be able to give you any useful information from it. I did read it a good few years ago, so obviously I needed to sort of go through it again to be able to share insights with you. And I'll be honest with you, I struggled with this book. Even this week, I've still found it quite hard going. And at first, I wasn't really sure what the problem was. So, thinking about it, I've come up with 2 reasons why I think I've had a bit of difficulty with it. The first, it says on the back, warning. Warning, do not read this book unless you want a new way of living. And I think that's the thing, is I don't really want a new way of living. I want to make a few tweaks to the current way of life that I've got. I want to improve in some areas, but I don't really want a new way of living. So the book in some respects didn't really speak to me. The other thing is it's quite detailed on the practicalities of how to achieve that new way of living. And I think that detail, because the book itself wasn't 100% relevant to me, that detail was a little bit unnecessary for me, and I got a bit bogged down in that and found it a bit difficult to progress with the book and move on. Having said all of that, there is a lot of wisdom in the book. There's a lot of if you do want a new way of living, then yeah, definitely go out, rush out, buy it, read it, start implementing the things that it says, because the practical steps are there. Some of the websites, etc., are probably going to be a little bit out of date. I think this edition was 2009 or 2011, something like that. But the practical steps are going to be useful to you. If you want to make some improvements to your life, again, there are lots of useful bits of information in there. I mean, one that I particularly like, I think I mentioned last week, was instead of working hard all your life and then living for the retirement when you're going to have fun and do what you want, is have mini retirements throughout your life, have breaks in your working life. It's also quite inspirational about, if the worst thing happens and you lose your job, or, things get really difficult, it's quite inspirational about, that's not the end of the world. You can find ways of coping and dealing with it. So it's really good from that point of view. I'll just give a quick summary of part of the sort of process of the book. He talks about deal. D stands for define. So define what it is that you want. And again, that's in common with so many of these books. It's important to be clear on what it is you actually want. The second thing, E, is eliminate. So get rid of all the unnecessary stuff. And he talks quite a lot about emails, and I only spend half an hour a week on emails, and sometimes I don't check emails for like a month. Well, that is probably quite radical for most of us, but again, useful tips, things that you can learn and take away from it. But eliminate unnecessary things that you don't need to do, stop doing them. The third is automate. And he talks a lot, not just about automation, but outsourcing, delegate things to other people to free up your time to do the things that you want to do. And the last one is liberate. So, and there is a section in there on, if you're an employee, how can you liberate your time? How can you escape the 9 to 5 when you're actually an employee? And again, there are some really useful tips that you can implement. I think I may have mentioned these in So Good They Can't Ignore You, when he talks about the human capital. The same idea is in this book, probably predates the Cal Newport one, is, you know, it becomes so indispensable to your employer that they'll let you set your own terms. So all that stuff is really useful. And then at the end, there's a little bit about human connection and the meaning of life. So it does get a little bit philosophical. And I think that kind of rescues the book, because some of the other parts of the book for me were a bit too ruthless, of like, cut all this out of your life. And I think while some of us might find those, and he recognises that it might be emotionally difficult to let go of some of those things. And really, if it's emotionally difficult, some of us might decide we don't want to let go of those things. We want to let go of other things instead. And that's fine. And I think he does kind of recognise that in the book. But there is definitely an element of, well, this is how I've done it, and this is my view, and this is why I think you should do it this way, which can come across as slightly dictatorial. But I wouldn't let that put you off the book. I think it's definitely a worthwhile read, whatever your position in life and whatever your long-term aims are in life. There is a lot of wisdom in here. So that's The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferris. That's this week's book in, again, a bit more than 5 minutes. Sorry about that, but it took me a lot of time to get through the book. So there we go. Let me know what you think. Have you read it? What do you think of the book? If not, are you going to run out and buy it? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Put your comments in the box below, and I look forward to seeing you next week for a book in 5 minutes. Bye.